Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 9. I hope all of you are doing well. And yeah, I'll take attendance. So raise your hand when I call your name. Oh, wait, we're not in a classroom together. But just like that, half the semester is over and we are headed into week 9. So we're moving on to one of my favorite weeks because we are doing something different and, dare I say, fun. Yes, I do dare to say that this week will actually be fairly fun. And we touched on it a little bit last week, denotative and connotative language. But let's just do a little recap in part because I'm sure you were much more concerned with the essays last week than you were with kind of anything with this week. So again, a word's denotation, right? You can kind of think of it as the plain and direct meaning or meanings. That is what is fully and clearly expressed by a word, right? So think of the dictionary's primary definition of the word. Sometimes connotations are also listed in subsequent word definitions, but for me, I often think of denotation equals dictionary, right? And that just kind of helps me remember that. Yeah, what would be an interesting example of a word that has kind of a denotative and connotative big difference? I would say like hullabaloo, right? The denotative meaning, the literal meaning for hullabaloo, is a loud noise, commotion, or uproar, often caused by a lot of people, right? But in the connotative, the more kind of emotional, cultural, or slang meaning, it carries a sense of exaggeration and oftentimes kind of a silliness, right? What's all that hullabaloo I hear you making, right? Right, so that's a word where the connotative is actually probably used more frequently than the denotative, and it's hard to take a word like that seriously, right? So a word's connotation is what the word implies or suggests. That is the kind of the nuances and shades of meaning that the word brings along with it, right? Apart from anything denotated, right? So, right, for example, slang words are full of connotations. And I touched a bit on that last week, right? Like, what's the connotation for the word basic or cooking or cooked or dripped or ghost or flex, right? The in the primary definition, if you say you're cooking, right, you're not literally like cooking something when you're kicking butt at something. And the primary definition for cooked is not that you were bad at something, right? So, and again, one of the cool things is that each generation, and oftentimes each even family and even friend group, or even with one other friend, right? We often develop our own connotations and claim aspects of language as our very own, right? So connotations are one way that we assert our generation's societal independence or our family connections or friend connections, right? And the misuse or kind of non-understanding of connotation that can also certainly say things about people. So again, connotations, think of the emotional associations that a word invokes. They can be positive, they can be negative, they can be neutral depending on the word that you use, right? In person, right, when we're dealing with people face to face, we often, right, we also have body language and we have tone that helps shapes meaning. In writing, we don't have those tools at our disposal. So we often make up for that through our use of connotative language, right? So to use an example outside of words, think of somebody just standing, right? In the denotative sense, a person standing means that they're just on their feet, right? They're literally standing. But in a connotative sense, we look beyond the act of the person simply being up on their feet, right? We might seek to gather meaning for how they are standing, Are they standing straight? Are they slumped over? Are they leaning? Yes, they are standing, but how they are standing, that also tells us important things, right? So thankfully, humans are quite oftentimes naturally good at connotative language, right? So even though you might not have used those terms to describe it, chances are it's probably very natural to you, right? So English as a language has very few word pairs that are exact synonyms, in large part because of connotations, right? They develop and they push the word's primary meanings and their denotations apart, right? So like hundreds of years ago, mansions and house, right? They could both be used for any kind of residence, but eventually mansion, as we know, takes on a connotation of kind of being a big and fancy house, right? So as writers, we get to choose. We can work more towards denotative language or connotative meaning, right? So think of she is tall and quiet versus she is statuesque and tranquil, right? Those images should bring different, those words should bring different images into your mind. Same words. Some words don't have many connotations, are like chair, tree, book, color. Although if I think about it, when I was younger, tree definitely had a connotation to it. Often words that explore intimacy and drugs have a lot of connotations. And I kind of, right, that might be a good thing to wonder why, right? Maybe it's a way to express certain things in a way that's not accessible to everybody, right? Taboo subjects often have a lot of connotative language, right? It's a way of talking about something in a more hidden way. So professional writers, very intentional with their word choices. Word choices direct readers to explore and make meaning of a work in a way that the writer intends. Word choice is also the primary ways that we develop a personal style. That is something we'll talk about next week. So, but when you're writing, it's often important to be aware of the connotations of the words that you're using in order to create the desired tone or atmosphere or kind of meaning of the piece. This also means that you can use denotative and connotative language to help analyze and find deeper meaning in something that you are reading, right? Just as you can read into how somebody is standing, right? You can read into those subtle and not subtle differences in word choice, right? In the U.S., right, we have certain constitutional protections around freedom of speech, but for a moment, I want you to kind of take the worldview and consider that in a lot of countries, they do not offer the same kind of protections, right? So let's say somebody lived in a country where being gay was illegal, right? And we can look that up and we can see that there are currently around 64 countries around the world, which is insane. Why would love or even intimacy between two consenting adults ever be a crime? I don't understand that at all. So, and in certain countries, the punishment for that could be really a range of things, including a long prison sentence or a death sentence, right? So if I was gay and I was living in one of those kind of terrifying, repressive environments or countries, and I wanted to find a relationship, how would I go about doing that? Right? I certainly wouldn't approach somebody I was attracted to in like a bookstore or something and start using denotative language to express my attraction, right? It could be really dangerous. I would more than likely use connotative language to get a sense of the situation, right? Maybe even the kind of language that somebody who wasn't gay wouldn't pick up on and somebody who was would understand, right? So this kind of circumvention of oppression goes in all sorts of aspects of life, right? And we often use the connotative language and meaning to circumvent these things, right? A girl or woman who wants access to education, right? during slavery and the Jim Crow era in the United States, right? Black people often use connotative language to critique oppression and show solidarity while not attracting kind of unwanted attention. The Dirty War, in which thousands of dissidents in Argentina, right? Families, particularly mothers, right? These are people that kind of just vanished. They were abducted and killed, right? Mothers, primarily the mothers, used kind of connotative language and symbols to do an act of protest, right? Of kind of a type of silent protest, right? In China, to circumvent government censorship, people often use slang, right? And euphemisms to discuss even things like sensitive political topics, right? And since this is an English class and we're most focused on words with our communication, right? But, and I don't know that we ever really talked about this. It's more of my 122 avenues of exploration, right? Language goes far beyond words, right? My case in point, I already said it before, we all use body language to communicate beyond words. And if we get really technical, cave paintings that are thousands of years old, those have been deemed language, right? So drawings could be considered a form of language, right? And body movement can be language, right? If it wasn't, then sign language wouldn't be considered language, right? So I won't get too far off track, but my point is language is much more than written or spoken words, right? And things like literature and meaning, they can be created outside of written or spoken words, right? Or what we think of as written or spoken words, right? So that means connotative meaning, right? Because connotative is part of language, it has to be able to be found beyond the written or the spoken word. So let's start simple. Let's take the dove, right? Denotatively, it's a bird that's often whitish in color. Connotatively, Alyssa, since you told me that you often go to the park and feed doves and meditate, what does the dove represent to you? And you are exactly correct when you say that it represents peace and hope. Great job, Alyssa, right? The butterfly, right? Denotatively, it's an insect that often has colorful wings. Connotatively, Morgan, since you're about to start your new life at USC, and congratulations for getting in, what does the butterfly represent to you? Yes, you're exactly right. Often used connotatively as a symbol of transformation and freedom. And you are also correct when you say that it depends on the culture because the butterfly has different connotative meanings for different societies. Skull and crossbones. Denotatively, a human skull with two crossed bones, right? Connotatively, Randall, since you told me that your lifelong dream was to be a pirate on the high seas in days of yore, what does skull and crossbones often connotatively mean? Yar, Captain. Good job, Randall. You are correct in saying that it connotatively represents danger or death. And I feel like I could do this all day, kind of make up facts about all of you. And you know what? Nobody's here to stop me. Except for Morgan did get into USC, so congratulations for that. That one is true. So, yeah, let's do one more. The olive branch. So the olive branch, denotatively, it's a branch from an olive tree. Connotatively, Lucas, what does the olive branch represent? No, you're thinking of the Olive Garden, right? That's where you get the all-you-can-eat breadsticks. I actually said olive branch. Yeah, you just didn't hear me. Sorry. I wasn't speaking loud enough. Yes, you are correct. The olive branch speaks about reconciliation and an offering of goodwill. I'm glad you didn't mean to say Olive Garden. So the purpose of connotative language, right, it's so multifaceted, right? It can be as simple as a way to deepen your bond with your best friend or strengthen your bond with your family or friend circle, right? It can hide messages from oppression. It can resist things like authoritarian and censorship. It can be used to hide things from authoritarian figures, even parents, right? It can be used to set tone, persuade, create a writing style. And again, we'll talk about writing style next week. Push bigger moments of symbolism and metaphor, right? So, and it can also help explain complicated things simply, right? And that is often the function of metaphor or simile, right? Is to explain something that's complex in a way, right? So this week, again, standalone week, meaning we're not using this information to go really beyond this week. When we're done with this topic, we're done. So hopefully this is kind of refreshing for you as well. So in this week's module, you will see some connotation examples, right? It'll look like that. It'll give the denotation, a negative connotation, a neutral connotation, and a positive connotation. You have things on there like a smell, negative connotation, a stench, neutral connotation, scent, positive connotation would be aroma, right? Cold weather, negative connotation, freezing, neutral connotation would be cold, positive connotation, cozy, right? So, and then there's a bunch of them on there, and please read through them. So, a used car. So negative would be rust bucket, although that's kind of a rad term. Neutral would be used. Positive would be pre-loved, right? So young adults. A well-organized person. I like this one. Negative, control freak. Neutral, organized. Positive, prepared, right? So, and then even when you're doing things like resumes and cover letters, really kind of think about how you're using, how you're sort of setting the tone and sort of selling yourself, and think about kind of using positive words with positive connotations and neutral ones, right? So for the assignments, there are two of them. One is more silly, and one of them is more on the serious side. So in terms of the more silly assignment, this part's in the module, so it's that list, but I'll read it. Denotative, primary dictionary definition, versus connotative. This is a for sale assignment. Please look through the house property details. There's 2 PDFs for them because for some reason I could not find a PDF for one listing, and I ended up on realtor.com, and I feel like everybody's trying to sell me a house. Anyways, read PDF 1, and then it continues on to PDF 2. And notice how denotative and connotative language is used to create a humorous listing for a house. And I will read that listing for you now. And that is also, so again, this listing is in the module. And we'll see if I feel like reading the whole thing. So here it is. It's the actual listing for a house. Here it is. Literally the worst house on the street. The seller has done the hard work of cleaning up the almost half-acre property. It only took 7 dumpsters. So now is your chance to take it from here. Have you ever watched HGTV and thought, I could do that? If so, pack up your tape measure and start Googling how to identify a load-bearing wall, because it's time to put your money where your mouth is. The roof leaks, the floor creaks, and there's a terrible draft, but this 3-bed, 1.5 bath house is very open concept. And by that, we mean the inside is open to the outside because several of the windows are broken. There's a large sunny window in the kitchen and absolutely nothing else. A wonderful feature for somebody interested in a bright reading space and ordering takeout every meal. Now, I know you've heard about a detached garage, but have you ever heard of a detached foundation? Because that's what you'll find here in a large bonus room at the right of the house. And if you're looking for a house that screams, I've got bizarre and ominous energy, then honey, stop the car because you found it right here, conveniently located off US 301 in North Zephyr Hills. If you need a place to stage your next post-apocalyptic zombie movie, this is it. The covered porch has really good rest here on your way to the safe zone vibes. And whether you like to turn up the heat or keep it cool, it won't matter because there is no HVAC system. Oh, and don't forget about the brick chimney that perfectly epitomizes how we all felt after 2020 about the collapse and going nowhere. Literally, there is no fireplace inside the house. What else can we say about this one-of-a-kind opportunity? It's not in a flood zone and will be conveyed with clear title, but we don't have a survey and the seller has never seen the property, so buyers are strongly encouraged to do their own due diligence. And if you're not interested in crying yourself to sleep every night while you rehab this home, might we suggest tearing it down and building a brand new one in its place? The neighbors would likely thank you. It's a long listing, right? So, actual listing. So, right, you get positive connotations in there like hard work, open concept, large sunny window, bright reading space, detached garage, large bonus room, honey, stop the car. Whether you like to turn up the heat or keep it cool, it won't matter. Brick chimney that perfectly epitomizes one-of-a-kind opportunity and clear title, right? Those are used to describe things about the house that most people would not see as a positive about this particular house. It's this juxtaposition of unexpected connotative language that often creates humor or surprise. So for the assignment, sell me something, right? Anything you want. Well, okay, almost anything you want. Please don't try to sell me your soul, and please don't make a listing to sell me dog poop. I'm not interested in either of those. And last time I did the assignment, I said anything, and I didn't put any parameters on it, and most of them turned out great. So, yeah. So one of them had an ad with a salesperson named Pooh Beard the Pirate that was selling dog poop. And it did really make me laugh. But I had to read about poop, and I don't like to read about that. So the assignment calls for creating a one-page descriptive classified style, whatever that means to you, right? So MLA format, so double-spaced, that includes humorous, denotative, and connotative language, right? You can make the bad seem good, the good seem bad. Ideas off the top of my head, I wrote some of them down. Try to sell me a piece of macaroni art from your childhood, your grumpy cat, a memory, a broken car. Try to sell me a broken dream. Hopefully you're too young to have any of those. A house, a used book, your parents' couch. Sell me a rock. Sell me guitar lessons, even though you have no idea how to play guitar. Try to sell me something that's been lurking in your refrigerator for far too long. Maybe a glamorous new hairstyle. Try to sell me the Eiffel Tower in a funny way, which a con man did actually once sell. And we're close to Halloween, so I don't know. Try to sell me a bad costume, a pumpkin from last year, candy from 5 years ago. Uh, you can even try to sell me this Step Down Werther's original pocket candy. Here, you can have it. So that's it for that assignment. Have fun with it. Meant to have fun with it. Lean into kind of the exaggerations or non-exaggerations. You can either submit that on paper or you can create a video recording for it. That's up to you. The other assignment is different, and then it's and we're almost done here. How long am I getting? It's a more serious exploration of denotative and connotative language. Right, for this really short essay, think like one, it is minimum of 1 page, but try to keep it pretty close to like a page, maybe a page and a half at the most. MLA format. The goal of the 1-page essay, and this is in the module as well, is to create authentic exploration about one issue from the list below that highlights ways in which connotative language is kind of used in society. And you will see all this in the module. So 4 choices. I think there's 4. Yeah, I made 4 choices. 1, how does connotative language offer ways for the LGBTQIA plus community to circumvent repressive and authoritarian aspects of society? If you pick this one, and honestly, if you pick almost any of them, the essay needs to be focused on one specific country or one specific culture, right? You want to name that society in the essay, right? Because those things change from place to place and culture to culture and country to country, right? And the essay will want to highlight specifics about the named society and specific challenges that the LGBTQIA plus community faces in that specific place, right? So, and then, be careful not to generalize. To not generalize, one might focus on one particular community of the LGBTQIA plus kind of umbrella community, right? For example, you might focus on how drag in the United States is often used connotatively as an act of resistance and a freedom of expression in often restrictive areas of society, right? I love drag. I think it's really neat. I think it kind of pushes out and fights against. So if this one calls to you, go for it. I would love to read that. So number 2, how does connotative language offer ways for us to feel it like we are inside of a family or group? So again, you want to be specific. If you and your bestie have a secret language, then talk about it specifically. Or your family or your friend group, right? And at the core, this topic wants to explore how connotative language helps to create closeness among people, right? And that's a really interesting question if you really think about it. And I don't know if there's any one specific answer to that question, but how does connotative language help us kind of create closeness among people? And importantly, consider why you and the friend group gravitate towards private aspects of language. Right? It's another kind of big question. Why do we feel the need, or why do you feel the need or the desire to have kind of a private language? Number 3, the third choice, how does connotative language offer ways to challenge censorship? Again, the place needs to be specific, right? Censorship in China is not the same as censorship in the United States or England, right? If this is the choice that you want to explore a specific kind of cultural censorship and specific ways in which certain groups navigate past that censorship, right? So different countries, different cultures, they're all going to have different aspects of things that they censor, right? So work to be specific. And then 4, the last choice is, and I'm almost done, It's the last page. How does connotative language offer ways to differentiate one generation from another, right? And again, be specific about the places and the generations that you're exploring, right? So, for example, in the United States, Gen X and Gen Z have different connotations that help create a barrier to contain certain things, right? So, like you and I, right, we're all in that same Generation Z. I think, are we Z or are we Alpha, right? But, right, we're all, you and I were, what, like 2-3 years apart, right? So we've kind of come up with this way to put a barrier from older generations. And every generation does that. So why do generations do this? Why don't we always use the same slang words? What do you think is important about the kind of generational distancing through connotative language and acts, right? So why can it be healthy for like your and my generation to differentiate ourselves from the older generation? So of note, remember that connotative is found in more than just written and spoken words, right? This wants to be, it's a short essay, but it does want to be finished and polished in an MLA format. This does want to contain at least, I don't know, I want real light on this, but think of this as a real minimum. At least one piece of outside evidence, something that you find outside of any materials that I have provided. I don't need a proper works cited page for these, but do give me at least a working URL and do create a parenthetical citation with a page number if it's applicable. And then lastly, keep things specific and personal, right? Use the I voice, be very specific and intentional about the writing. It's a really short one, so my advice, please try not to take on more topics than necessary, right? Because you can quickly find yourself in a situation where you're up against like a 4 or 5 page essay, right? And this is not meant to be that. So, right, it's meant to be a little bit of thought, some enjoyment, just something you can like, kind of turn out and do fairly quickly. So I think that's it. Have a wonderful week. Bye for now.